All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from Atlanta, Georgia by John Ostenson. How are you doing, John?
Hey, John, doing great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and John's the founder and CEO of Banbridge Consulting, an Inc. 5000 company, and he is a top 1% franchise consultant, also the author of the best-selling book, Non-Food Franchising. And you draw on your experience as a former Inc. 500 franchise president and multi-brand franchisee and helping your clients select their franchise investment, and your contributor on franchising for Forbes, Bloomberg, and other publications. I'm going to talk today about non-food franchising. Let's get straight into it, John. When most people think of franchising, they do think of the food franchises, the fast food franchises. I myself spent a little bit of time at a non-food franchising, New Horizons Computer Learning Centers at the franchisor there. But why is it? Why do you say that non-food franchising? Why are those a good option for people?
Yeah, first off, we've got nothing against the food guys. We need them, we support them, but my humble belief is there are easier ways to make money. And so most of our clients come to us looking for opportunities, across many are at different stages of their career, but oftentimes they're looking for a change. And so about half of our clients make the jump, to a full-time owner-operator role, and the other half are more semi-passive executive model where they manage the manager, maybe while they keep their W-2 job. But no, I'd say, everyone has this desire to be a business owner is what I found. And some act on it, some don't. Most people don't know where to start. And that's where we help them connect the dots. And, my humble belief is, that the franchising presents a better option for business ownership for most people out there, where you do get some guardrails, you get some training wheels, you get a proven model that has been established, and you got a coach on the sidelines, that franchise or other franchisees living the same thing as you day in, day out. So you're exchanging best practices. So, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And there's just so much benefit to be in with a good franchise system from a support standpoint, and just allowing you to really start on third base.
Yeah, and you just mentioned there, I think, which is good for people to understand the different approaches. You can be the full owner operator, or as you said, you can, what is it, the more executive model. Can you just explain those in a little more detail for people? Because I agree with you. I think people do want to have their own business. I think it's exploded now. I think for a lot of different reasons, more and more people are interested in doing something on their own.
Yeah, an owner-operator role would be that you're hands-on. It may not be that you're working in the business, but you are working on the business as your main focus. Call it 40 hours a week, let's say. Early going, and maybe a little more, right? I mean, business ownership does take work. Oftentimes, clients of ours have the goal of eventually replacing themselves in the business. They may start out owner-operator, and then they move to more of an executive model. But about half of our clients do start out with that executive model, and ideas that you put a manager in place. And because you've got a good franchisor on the sideline, and you and I both know not every franchise is created equally. So that's why I said good franchisor, someone that's got the systems dialed in. They're able to carry a lot of that daily support water of helping to support the manager, so you don't have to give full-time focus. And so it does make it doable. I will say, it still takes work. I never want to sugarcoat it. As long as you really have to have someone that's trustworthy, that you align interest with, it's highly incentivized in that role, because you have a great vehicle. You still need a good driver to really take that business to where you want to take it.
Yeah. And let's face it, a lot of people who would say, okay, this sounds great, like franchising sounds like a good idea, but they've no idea where to start or what kind of franchise would best suit them. How do you help people select the franchise that works best for them?
You're exactly right. There's so much noise out there. And even if someone's Googling around and they find a top 50 list or top 100 franchise list, most of those companies are actually paying to be on the list. It's a PR move. So there's just a lot of noise. So that's where we help come in with our experience. We work with over 600 fast growing brands, those that are looking to expand, that still have good markets to expand into. And let me say this, John, it's entirely free to work with us. We're essentially a real estate broker, but for franchises. And so we get a referral fee from the seller on the back end. None of that's passed on to our clients. So it's totally free to work with us. But what I'll do is I'll get to know our client in a very concise manner. Most of our clients are, mid to senior level executives, and so they don't have a lot of time. So I've really streamlined our process where quick get to know you, have them fill out just a little bit of information, and then I come back to them with, hey, if I were in your shoes, based on what you've shared with me, based on what I'm seeing out there, here are the top 10 or so opportunities that are available in your market across different industries, different price points that we feel strongly about. They'll ultimately choose maybe 3 or 4 to then have a conversation with. And then we kind of hold their hand through the process, from a support standpoint, and providing a sounding board. And we can always iterate into other opportunities because they start to crystallize in their minds as they go through the process. What are those characteristics I like? What are the industries I like? And, we've got funding resources. We've got franchise attorney to review the agreement. We've got a recruiter to help them hire key personnel. So essentially a one-stop shop, if you will.
Yeah. And you just mentioned funding there, because that's another obviously consideration. Some people out there might think, well, I need a lot of money if I'm to invest in a franchise. But I think there are opportunities across the board, aren't they, that can fit most people's pockets?
Yeah, so we have some clients that are doing big 7-figure deals. Had some clients buy 10 trampoline parks the other day. Those were big deals. Most people, though, when you look at the franchise fee and the startup cost and several months of working capital, essentially your all-in investment, oftentimes you're in the $150,000 to $400,000 range, somewhere in there. Quite a few on either side of that as well. But while some people will use cash to fund it, most like the idea of an SBA loan. So they'll put in $50,000 of cash, and then the bank lends, through the SBA program, the balance of that. Obviously, banks prefer lending to franchises, so it really is a pretty seamless process. Some people will actually use their old 401ks and roll those over through what's called the ROBS program and purchase the business that way. It's a way to self-direct, and then they pay themselves a salary through that. So again, a lot of different ways to get involved.
And you said SBA actually likes franchises?
Oh yeah, it's just more predictable. Nothing's foolproof, but
Sure.
you look at the history and the track record, and it goes without saying.
Yeah. And in terms of, and you mentioned when you work with people, in terms of having experience, how often would you say the person buying into the franchise has experience in that industry, and how often is it completely new to them?
It's almost always completely new. I'd say it's the exception that they have industry experience. I will say there's transferable skill sets. I know many of your listeners, are sales folks. I've got a background in sales myself. I think that is a great transferable skill set. I always like seeing that. When I was a franchisor and I had all these franchisees, our top ones had a sales background. Not that they were at the tip of the spear leading the sales effort, but they understood how to attract and retain and incentivize and coach salespeople, right? Which is key to any business. But no, we see so many walks of life, doctors, lawyers, again, a lot of corporate folks getting involved in franchising, and everything from home and property services. People love all the niches within that. I've done a lot of investing there. The things like health and wellness, the categories like kids, pets, seniors. The general theme that we're seeing out there these days are, what are those opportunities and industries that people are always going to spend on, regardless of the economy, regardless of tariffs, regardless of the pandemic. What are those understandable cash flowing businesses?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that. Are there franchises? Nothing's like foolproof or recession proof, obviously, but are there ones like that have that you can rely on to say, okay, I have the best shot regardless of market conditions with this franchise?
Yeah, people are always going to continue to get old, and they've got to be taken care of. So we do a lot of in-home senior care placements. There's a lot of unique models within that space. People will always spend on their kids' development, whether it be tutoring, and we've had a lot of clients do really well with youth soccer. They've done very well. But everyone's got a pet, so pet grooming is always going to be around. But a lot of people like those. Obviously, health and wellness. I'd say some of those can be bigger investments. It's more retail, customer facing type operations. But home and property services, I'd say that's had the most interest of any area in recent years, just because it's very scalable. And I can just mention a few that I'm invested in, or I'll just give you one example.
Yeah.
This one's not going to go out of style. It's an asphalt paving and line striping business. We handle parking lots. You're always going to need parking lots no matter what. So just a lot of different niches out there.
Yeah. So actually, just on that, what are some of the new, maybe more unusual ones that have come across your radar recently?
I'd say the fastest moving one last year was a business that in the health and wellness space that focused on hormone replacement, specifically testosterone. And that became a recurring revenue business. That sold out in the US in about 9 months. Our biggest challenge is that good opportunities move fast in good markets.
Yeah.
Another one that's just about sold out that I'm actually invested in personally provides temporary walls, like containment walls around renovation projects and construction sites. It's essentially it's a B2B equipment rental business, if you will.
Mm.
Again, something you wouldn't normally think of. There's one coming down right now that I'm really excited about that's done very well overseas in the UK. They've got a lot of locations. They're coming to the US, and it involves freight, kind of the freight space, a lot of logistics and supply chain kind of oriented consulting, working with all these different providers. Just great numbers in the UK. We think it'll transfer very well to the US.
Well, yeah, especially because given all the things that's going on with trade and supply chain and everything, storage and being able to handle freight. And even I heard of somebody even recently buying up warehouse space on the border because to take advantage of
Yeah,
being able to import and hold stuff, right?
exactly.
So there's, yeah. Um, and so on that, then once you decide on your franchise, or you narrow it down, I mean, what do you look for in a franchise owner? What do you look for in somebody and say, okay, this person has what it takes to succeed, or this is somebody who's going to need a lot of like hand holding, maybe by the franchisor?
Yeah. Well, first off, assuming they've got some capital, right, to deploy, that's a given. Really, it's two things, John, and it's not rocket science by any stretch.
Mhm.
It's kind of cliche. The first one is they've got to be good with people. They don't
Mm.
have to be tremendous with people, but they've got to be someone that's just business 101, someone that people want to work with, right?
Right.
And then secondly, they've got to be willing to follow a system. I mean, that's what franchising is, and that sounds
Mhm.
cliche, but it's so true. When I was a franchisor, I looked across all of our franchisees, and those top ones oftentimes had a sales background. Like I said, they're good with people, but they're also willing to follow a system. And not everyone can do that. Some people think they're the smartest guy in the room, no matter what room
Right.
they're in. I've got some clients that have to say, "Hey," or "You're too entrepreneurial. You want to put your thumbprint all over everything." But for those that say, "Hey, we're ready to execute a proven system, and we're going to follow some directions," franchising is a great fit.
Yeah. And what are some of the I know she said following a process, but once somebody gets into franchising, do you find that they most times they go, okay, this is what I expected and it's good and I'm working with the franchisor and this is going steadily, or do a lot of people kind of get into it and then say, oh, this isn't really what I was expecting, it's a little either more or less? How do most people react sort of once they're in the franchising business?
Yeah, I'd say for most, it's what they expected because they had so much due diligence leading up to that point. Our
Mhm.
whole exploration process, I mean, they get on a lot of calls and presentations with the franchisor, but they also get to talk to other franchisees in the system. So they could hear what is it really like. It's what we call validation calls. And so they get a lot of perspective, a lot of data points. So I'd say a lot of it is what they expected, but I do get feedback from time to time that, hey, this is more work than we expected, right? And um, I mean, the fact is, business ownership, if it was easy, everyone would be a business
Yeah.
owner. So we do see instances where someone says, maybe I got in a little over my head or ahead of my skis. It's more work than I expected.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because anybody starting a business, franchising or not, I mean, there is going to be a period of time where they're going to have to work really, really hard. I mean, I think that's just a given, and I guess with with franchising, it's the same. So, how important is it that they have the right expectations set and they have the right support system around them?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think I always encourage people. There are a lot of ways to do due diligence on the front end, and one of those key things. It comes down, like I said, even if you're running the business, to having good people on your team, but especially if you're going to have trust someone else to run it.
Mhm.
They just have to be compensated well. They've got to be coached well, supported well. Some of the support can come from the franchisor, but you want to understand that going in. What kind of support are you providing to other franchisees who are running this model? What are the expectations here? And like I said in the beginning, not every franchise system is created equal, and some have great support systems and some don't. And that's
Mhm.
where we come in to try to help our clients identify those that have the most interest for them, but also can provide them with the most support.
Right, yeah. And are there franchise opportunities available that are less people dependent? If you're somebody who says like I'm looking for something that I can run that maybe is more technology driven as opposed to people driven.
There are, we've got a couple in the B2B space. Business coaching is a perfect example. You're not going to build a team. That's something you do, but there's a great franchise around that. Cost consulting, kind of like more analytical type. I say it's more analytical. There's a strong sales component to it. Those are ones where we wouldn't build out a team. There's a really great pool cleaning business right now where the technology is such that it was designed essentially for someone to work entirely way remote, on the beach, sitting there punching in their phone, because they're driving the leads with their marketing and they're answering the phones with their in-house call center, and you're literally approving the appointment. So if you've got someone that you trust, running the business for you, the day-to-day, you can run that remote. So I'd say more and more for franchises to attract good people into their franchise system, they're opening up the support so that they can bring those good people in and then support their manager that they put in place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess also one of the benefits today of, because the way we've seen the atrophy of retail and retail spaces, and that service-based businesses, for premises, locations, and those, they're probably a little bit more available than they were perhaps, when retail was much stronger.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking with the commercial agent the other day that does a lot in the retail space, and he said, inventory is a little tight right now. I mean, in a lot of markets, and there's really been a movement. Probably half of what our clients are getting into doesn't require a physical customer-facing retail space. It's actually remote, more in the field type. So some of those home services I talked about are senior care. You're not putting up a big, front there in a shopping center. So yeah, it's a hybrid, but certainly after COVID, we saw kind of a move away from retail. We are seeing a move back, and you are seeing tight inventories in some markets.
Yeah. And are you seeing some franchises that are, reaching saturation point? Well, we see fitness ones regularly. I mean, I see in my own area, they seem to come and go. I mean, that seems to be a particularly competitive space, that you'll see one pop up and then a couple of months later it's gone.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's one of the things I don't like about the food space as much as just the trends change. We think about frozen yogurt. That was big until it wasn't, right?
Right.
And I'd say within boutique fitness, you certainly have the Orange Theories of the world, or Club Pilates, or some that are built to last. But you do have a lot that will turn over because they're a one-trick pony. And so I'd say there's a little more risk, just generally speaking, in certain industries. And that's where a lot of our clients, again, are going to things. Some of the examples I mentioned, they're not going to go out of style. They kind of like those non-sexy, non-trendy, understandable businesses.
Right. Yeah, no, and absolutely. I mean, that makes the most sense. And just explain to the viewers, as you said, I mean, franchisors are different, but explain to the viewers the type of support that a good franchisor will give to you.
Yeah, the name of the game this day and age, they've got to provide marketing support, right? And that can look different, but oftentimes they have an in-house marketing team. They may partner with preferred agencies on the outside, but they've got all the collateral for you. You're not having to create that, and the websites and advertising. And typically they can run your paid advertising, all of your digital, if there's any mail or print as well. You're funding that, right? But they're running it for you, so you don't have to become a SEO expert or a pay-per-click expert. They usually encourage you to do some organic stuff on your end, but again, they support you and give you ideas and all that. In some cases, they have an in-house call center like that one I mentioned earlier. A good number of them do have that. Most of them have a technology stack that you're stepping into day one. Certainly all the training, and typically they can train not only you, but your key team members as well. And then they provide just the support of, having these group calls and, bringing these franchisees together where, again, you're exchanging best practices, learning from each other, kind of shortcutting that learning curve. And like I said, business ownership takes work, and sometimes you need others that can relate to your exact situation. And you have that. I mean, it's like a mastermind on steroids, because unlike a mastermind, you've got everyone running the same business. So you really can, but everyone's got a different background. So you're bringing different perspectives to the table. And, a good franchisor is going to let their franchisees try some innovative ideas. That's where the best, future learnings come from. That's how they evolve. However, they're not going to let you go too far off the reservation, outside the guardrails, because they know that's not in your best interest.
Yeah. And I guess, and it's one of those great times where, or rare times when they rarely have not heard the issue that you might bump up against.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
Exactly right. And you're paying a royalty, right? I mean, that's the
sure.
knock against franchising is, hey, you're paying a percentage of the revenue back to the franchisor. I always encourage people, hey, when you're going through the process, try to understand what are you getting in exchange for that. And
Yeah,
there's the tangible piece, oftentimes things that you'd be paying for anyway if you were just go start a business. But then there's that intangible piece. And like you said, it's some of that expertise and knowledge where your marketing may be closer to optimized day one. So you don't have to go spend a ton of money trying to optimize it, right? Or
Mhm.
sometimes there could be key learnings that they've acquired over time that you don't have to go make on your own, those mistakes on your own. So tangible and intangible support.
Yeah, and that's also just good for people to know that most franchises, you have an initial franchise fee, correct? When
Correct.
you join, and then you pay royalties based on your earnings,
Exactly right.
and beyond that, there's not really any other fees, is there?
Yeah, with the royalty, royalty may be, call it 6% of revenue,
Mhm.
7% of revenue. There's typically a 1 or 2% marketing fee as well, which is going
Mhm.
for some, you know,
Yeah,
oftentimes it pays for the home office team that's supporting you, right?
yeah,
Franchisors not getting rich off of that. But, you know, one additional point that I'll make as you think about kind of the economics behind it, getting into franchising or business ownership, you're building a cash flow, you're building an exit value, and then you're also getting great tax benefits, right? I mean, the tax code was written in favor of business owners. So I always encourage people when they're thinking about, maybe jumping from their current W-2 salary into business ownership and they think about the ramp up financially. It's like, wait a minute, you also are going to be able to sell this one day,
right.
oftentimes to another franchisee within the system. That's very, very common. But you're also getting tax benefits. So especially if you have a spouse that's working, it can really open up the tax playbook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's a great point. And as you said, I mean, oftentimes selling the franchise becomes, I mean, it's a lot sometimes easier than selling a standalone business because you have ready-made people who may want to expand their franchise ownership within the network already.
Oh yeah, no. So many people reach out to me and say, "Hey, we like the idea of buying an existing business," and we talk about that. And the fact is, there aren't that many good existing franchises for sale because they were bought by other franchisees in the system.
Mhm.
That internal M&A is very common, and I I know this will relate to someone that's listening out there. It's a popular idea to buy an existing business. There are a lot of talking heads on social media, feeding people out information. It can be a great move, but there's also the calls I get. People have been looking for existing businesses for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They've been under LOI, due diligence didn't shake out, someone outbid them. It takes a long, long time to thread the needle on that. And even then, you're paying a premium for that business, assuming everything stays the same.
Yep.
However, on day two, whenever you ever change in ownership, you're going to lose some key employees or key customers. It just happens. And oftentimes you don't factor that in. So once people start thinking about it that way, they say, wait a minute, franchising, where I can put, it's a proven business model. If I can put my thumbprints on it, select my own people from day one, maybe it makes more sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one final point too is, oftentimes then you have a lot of experienced people in those franchise networks who maybe are looking for opportunities in different locations and different businesses or whatever. So you sometimes have access to a talent pool too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, listen, this has been really interesting, John. Thank you so much. Fascinating insights. All of John's information will be below this video. But before we go, just remind everybody what you do.
Yeah, come out to franbridgeconsulting.com, FRAN, bridgeconsulting.com. And again, it's entirely free to work with us. And what I love doing is connecting entrepreneurs and would-be investors with the top franchise opportunities in their markets. So as a first step, John would love to share our book, Non-Food Franchising, free copy with all of your listeners, free digital copy. Just share your email address on our website and we'll share that with you.
Fantastic. Well, I'd go and encourage you to check that out. As I said, I mean, from what I can gather, just anecdotally, there's so many more people who are looking to do things on their own now. People want to go live where they want to live. They don't want to be stuck, like attached to some corporation in some high cost area, when there's a downturn and they're the first person out the door, and now they're stuck in a high cost area that they didn't even want to live in the first place. So I think it's a great time for people to explore opportunities. And if you don't have a burning desire to start a particular business for yourself, and I think franchising is a great model. So
Absolutely.
so thanks again, John. Thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you.